Hey, Max. Relax, bud. I'm going live. What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Ryan, and this is the Thunder Channel on nootropics, on testosterone, on biohacking, and on male performance. Happy Saturday. Haven't done a Saturday live stream because I've been traveling for essentially 2 Saturdays in a row. Last Saturday, I was in the Lehigh Valley. For those of you not familiar, that's the east side of the state of Pennsylvania. And the Saturday before, I was in upstate Ohio. So now we are back. I was almost going, I thought I was not going to do the stream because I had potential plans to go to Florida on business. And I was going to fly out literally yesterday. And then, it ultimately got canceled, which is great. I wanted to go to Florida, but I also kind of didn't want to just up and fly to Florida for what would have been about 2 days or something and then have a meeting, and then fly back. It's not really a vacation. Anyway, so before we get some questions in, those of you that just jumped in, what's up? Hope you're doing great. Post your questions if you got them. Send them down in the chat, and I will put them on the screen as the special is. So let's talk about that. 30% off the Torque stack right now. Coupon code is 30Torque. That'll save 30% off of the price of Torque, which is cheap anyway compared to most of the other pre-made stacks that are out there. So if you punch in code 30Torque at checkout, it will deduct 30% off of the price immediately. And then you can just check out and have uber cheap Torque. You can do that at livecortex.com or the links in this video. All right, guys, ask them if you got them. I'll put them up. In the meantime, I guess I can talk about what's been going on nootropic-wise and otherwise with me. Well, let's talk about anabolics and androgenics for a second. I've got some Proviron coming in for those of you that are on TRT or interested in that sort of stuff. Proviron is essentially a DHT, synthetic DHT derivative, which will bind directly to the androgen receptors with higher affinity than testosterone and have primarily androgenic effects, right? Not so much anabolic effects. I think there's anabolism there where you can build muscle or it's easier to build muscle or retain mass, but it's largely androgenic. DHT at the receptor site is profoundly androgenic. So I'm looking forward to just sort of fussing around with that and seeing what it does for libido, erection quality, I guess just, the androgenic kind of positive. So that's going to be interesting. I'll keep you guys posted on how that works out. I got it coming in probably Tuesday or Wednesday this week from, essentially a UGL source. So we're going to see how that kind of, how it looks, how it's packaged, and how that might compare to perhaps Bayer Proviron, actual pharmaceutical grade. I'm not entirely sure the grade because it is not without, or it is without a script that I've got it. So, all right, let's get to questions. I don't really have anything else about me, so I just get right to your guys' questions. Good news to say my testosterone package is taking forever to get to my place, man. So what happened? You went on TRT or you did the initial consultation with the clinic and now they're sending your shit and it's taking a while to get there. Or if you're already on TRT, look, I think Empower Pharmacy, which is a somewhat prominent pharmacy that is shipping, people's testosterone replacement therapy, certain compounded creams, compounded anastrozole and hosts of other things are backed up. My pharmacy that I'm getting TRT from is backed up. It's a company called, it starts with an A. The name is escaping me off the top of my head. They're in Florida. They're backed up a little bit. I'm not entirely sure what the deal with compounding pharmacies is right now, but a lot of them seem to be backed up, which is not great. So maybe that's, the situation with you, man. Best of luck. Hope you get that resolved. I just recently reordered. I actually have testosterone cream coming, and it's a gel base, but it's effectively cream just to sort of fuss with it as it relates to DHT. So that should be interesting, but it's taking longer than it should. You need Santini is saying, should I take alpha GPC with Torque? If so, how much and what's the benefit? There really wouldn't be an additional benefit of taking GPC with Torque because you have a perfectly dosed amount of a choline source in there already of citicoline at a low dose. I forget off the top of my head. Yeah, Citidine 5 is at 40 milligrams. You don't want to be dosing bioavailable choline sources very high unless you're a heavy person. And by heavy, I mean, 180 pounds plus, 200 pounds plus to be safe. But, it would be redundant to add alpha GPC to, a stack that's primarily energizing and dopaminergic, which is what Torque is, that already has a good choline source in it. At the right dose. You don't want to run into side effects, and choline tends to do that if you're, not dosing it correctly. Serene 618 is saying, do you think supplement with bifido species can counter gut side effects associated with keto or carnivore? Yes. Yeah. So what Serene 618 is referring to here is that ketogenic diet or the starvation of your gut microbes of carbohydrates is going to limit the production. It's going to limit the life. Like you may even have bifido species that die of various bifidobacteria species, right? They need carbohydrates to thrive. And so you end up running low on bifido if you don't eat carbohydrates. So if you take a bifido-based supplement, that should help. Keep in mind that they're transient bacteria, so they're not going to colonize at any major capacity unless you're using a single strain like Bifido longum. BB536 is a very particularly studied strain, and that can colonize, right? And there's some research to suggest that it colonizes, and then there's other research to suggest that it doesn't, and that's probably based on the individual's environment, sort of a microbial ecosystem or whatever. But, I think that would be the second best strategy to just drinking mother's breast milk, which you can get or you can mimic by buying baby formula. I know that sounds wacky, but as a biohacker, I've come to learn this sort of stuff, that baby formula has human milk oligosaccharides in it, which are going to give you colonizable bifidobacteria. So that's something to look into. Sandra is saying, never tried Torque. I'm very interested. Hector, very awesome. Yeah, buy Torque, man. Right now it's on discount at livecortex.com. I'll give you the code in a second here. Right there. Code is 30 Torque. So you can save 30% off. There's like no better time to get it. We don't usually run 30% off specials on Torque, but right now that is what we got. So go try. You're going to love the stack. I mean, people that take Adderall and Vyvanse and or Ritalin or modafinil and are sick of some of the side effects of especially the former chemicals switch to Torque and have a much better time. Yeah, so initial consultation. Yeah, bro, it could be the pharmacy taking a while. DJ Millen is saying, could having anemia affect how well some nootropics work? Sure. Yeah, because having anemia is going to fuss with your energy for sure. Definitely. If you're even if your iron looks fine but your ferritin is like, even if it's in range but it's like a little bit above the reference range, you're not going to feel as optimal as you need to. I would suggest, if you have anemia, taking a chemical called lactoferrin that should raise your iron and your iron stores, not just like regular iron. In addition to that, yeah, probably consume a lot of meat, consume red meat. I mean, if you don't have to be uber judicious about it, just get the iron in, if that's got to be in like deli meat, go for it. I was talking to this chick at the gym. We're talking about post-workout meals, and I'm like, sometimes I just like a good big sandwich with deli meat. And she's like scoffed at it. Deli meat. Because people are conditioned these days. Like, sugar's bad. No, it's not. It depends on if you exercise or not, if you lift weights. Deli meat's bad because of the nitrates. No, it's not. Not necessarily. Everything in moderation, my friends. Darren is saying, hey, Ryan, is there any way to inhibit the enzyme that converts dopamine to norepinephrine so you can get only the dopaminergic effect of L-tyrosine? That is a good question. And off the top of my head, I do not know the answer to that question, but I know which enzyme you're talking about. It's not dopa decarboxylase or tyrosine hydroxylase. It's, what is it? It's a different enzyme. I forget off the top of my head, but that converts noradrenaline to adrenaline, or the other way around, adrenaline to noradrenaline. And I don't know if there's a chemical that does that. But if you can find the name of that enzyme and then go try to Google around for chemicals that may inhibit it or natural supplements that inhibit it, then you might find an answer. By the way, I'm drinking a Coke. Don't judge me, okay? I ran out of coffee. That's just me not like looking at my shit and realizing I got to go to the store and get coffee. So I picked up a Coke for the caffeine. And interesting thing about Coke, I'm not saying Coke is great, but interesting thing about like small cans of Coke is it's not a lot. And you get 50 or so milligrams and it's not as much as coffee. You get just enough caffeine. And I think that's pretty cool. All right. Marcel, thank you so much for the super chat, Marcel. You guys can super chat your questions or ask for free. It's totally up to you. But if you super chat them, we'll give them a lot more time and attention. Marcel is saying, hey, thoughts on good stacks and or combination to become more decisive, except test. Also had some digestive issues with bromotain. Any advice? Digestive issues with bromotain. Wonder how that could have been, why that could have been. I know that extra synthesis of dopamine has some sort of effect on gut motility, so probably, you're the basis for your problem there. Good stacks and combinations be more decisive. Yeah, other than you excluded the one thing that I would tell you to become more decisive, which would be to raise your testosterone levels. But other than that, I mean, indirectly raising testosterone with something like Fedosia agrestis combined with Tongetta Lee will raise your testosterone levels, and that'll make you a lot more decisive. But otherwise, yeah, any of the cholinergics combined with a stimulant like teocrine would do that. Like, so you have 100 milligrams of teocrine or something, and then call it 400 or 500 milligrams aniracetam with a very low dose choline source. Then your brain will be in that very kind of dominantly assertive place just because you're functioning better. So that would be my suggestion there. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I don't know how you respond to modafinil, but modafinil certainly, I mean, the stuff continues over 15 years now to impress me, both in myself and clients. Like, I just had a guy that signed on to a larger program that, was having trouble and is running marketing for like several casinos, online casinos, and he's having trouble going back and forth. And apparently there's this big deal going on that he's working on. And the guy, when I had a Skype call with him, he just looked stressed, man. Got him on modafinil, and some other agents for sleep, and he's a completely different person. So I would consider modafinil in that particular case as well. Thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate your question. That was a good question. Good luck with bromontane. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what's happening there other than dopamine receptor binding in the intestinal tract. Jordan G Unit, thank you so much for the $10. Appreciate the super chat, bro. Question is thoughts on HGH on TRT. Also thoughts on agmatine every day since mild cholinergic effects. Forget the mechanism of action of agmatine, so let me just check it out real quick. Let's see. What's it doing? Neuronal nitric oxide synthase and leads to oxidative inactivation of the enzyme. Okay. It's doing a lot. Produces hypoglycemia and diabetes. Okay. Is it affecting GABA? Looks like it may be increasing GABA levels, decreasing glutamate levels. I think that's kind of interesting. Not seeing any cholinergic effects here. I'm sure there are. It would take me forever to try to research that. It's not a chemical that I use very often, right? Because I don't consider it a nootropic, and that's kind of why. There's certain chemicals, like there was an opioid receptor agonist. God, I forget the name of it. It's like so like fringe. It's a very fringe chemical that I fussed with that people in the nootropics community like to take, but I ended up feeling like not really great. I felt fine, but it's an opioid receptor agonist, right? So I kind of felt like greasy, if you will. It was just really weird. So agmatine is not a chemical that I talk about or have fussed with that much. Growth hormone on TRT. Yeah, look, what would be a good place to try to understand that? The steroids subreddit. So reddit.com/r/steroids would be a good place to sort of find people that are doing that. I have no experience with it, right? I haven't used growth hormone, nor have I used anything other than alpha GPC to raise growth hormone. Alpha GPC will do that at some capacity, which is interesting, aside from being just cholinergic. So hard to say, man. I wish I could help you on that. Yeah, go to the testosterone subreddit and the steroid subreddits and see what people think about it. I'm sure there's going to be like a lot of anecdotals and people talking about doses, and I'm sure there's some YouTube videos on it too, but I just don't have an answer for you. If you want to ask another question, Jordan, so we can get you value for your super chat, go for it. Can't really help you on that one though. Thoughts on using Wellbutrin as a mild functional stimulant? I can't say it's a good idea because I have had to fix people's sexual function when they came off of Wellbutrin. So they had Wellbutrin-induced sexual dysfunction, and I had to fix it. And it took us any type of sexual dysfunction from a hardcore pharmaceutical drug usually takes many months to resolve, to fix. So I can't say that's a good idea, my man. All right, I'm missing questions here. Simon Marshall is saying, hey, Ryan, I've mentioned Mucuna before. Can it substantially affect testosterone? And what is the mode of action for it to raise tests just to order testosterone blood tests? Yes, Mucuna does modify, I believe. You're going to end up with more total tests and subsequently more free tests, a little bit more estradiol, probably marginal. And the mechanism of action for that, as far as I can remember, I just lost my stream. Hold on. Is mecunopurine's effect on gonadotropin. So it is making you release a little bit more luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, and therefore, that's going to signal right to the Sertoli cells and the Leydig cells to make sperm and test. So that's the mechanism by which it raises testosterone. I wouldn't expect a huge, increase, especially if you have like some sort of deficiency in testosterone, like something wrong at the Leydig cell level, or at the lack of cholesterol level, or at the synthesis level. This is just me kind of reaching at possible problems with testosterone synthesis. But if you have a major issue with it, it wouldn't be very effective. But if you don't, Mucuna is pretty wild for turning on libido, both through its action on dopamine as well as LH and FSH and making you make more testosterone. So, interesting question, man. Keep losing my damn chat. Where the hell is it? All right, let me just pop it back out. Guys, give me a second. I lost my chat. In the browser. All right, cool. I think I got it back. Let's see. Yeah. I don't know what chioneptine is. You may be thinking of tianeptine. And that's actually the chemical that I was talking about before, which is an opioid receptor agonist I tried and did not like. Yes. So yes, that's exactly what I was talking about. I tried that stuff, and yeah, it made me feel, as you might imagine an opioid receptor agonist would make you feel, like too good. But then I had a little bit of a withdrawal from it, and I just generally felt like that kind of greasy feeling, like I was taking, some sort of hardcore GABAergic, and I don't like that feeling. I don't like feeling like blah and kind of like I'm, like out of it or something like that. That's basically how it made me feel. S225 is saying, does BPC 157 need to be injected near the injury? So this is a peptide that you make. It's a reparative peptide that you make inherently for repair, I think in your gut, but you don't make nearly enough of it if you've got some major injury, like a shoulder injury is the most common, like gym injury. And so people tend to inject it on site at injuries to rapidly foster recovery of the tissue in that area. I have used it in the past. I had to inject it into my delt, so directly into my muscle, for a shoulder injury. Can I say that it helped? Yes. Did it cure it? No. But it made it way better, way quicker. So, I think there's also intranasal BPC 157. It's just nasal spray, but I can't speak to the efficacy of it for major injuries. Great question. Thanks so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Darren is saying adenosine agonist for sleep. So what he's referring to is like adenosine is like what caffeine binds to and blocks, and all the other stimulants like teocrine and theobromine. If you agonize the receptor, you'll be sleepy, and I don't know off the top of my head. I would rather look into ways of increasing adenosine rather than looking for a chemical that's an agonist. DJ Millen is asking, what's the equivalent of 9-ABC for regulating choline receptors? Probably nicotine will upregulate nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. There's a potential to upregulate cholinergic receptors with coliracetam via more choline uptake into neurons. I'm not sure if that will upregulate the receptor, but it's plausible. Jordan G Unit is saying, how long of a break should I take from choline supplements to get more acute effects? 3 weekly rotations, good, but still not doing as much. So thinking of break. Yeah, at this point, you may need to take a month. Yeah, there's something about continuous use. This is why I always frown against it. Continuous use of cholinergics. You got to cycle those unless it's very low dose and stacked with dopamine or energy nootropics, like in the Torque stack. That's why it's dosed that way. Otherwise, they're going to lose potency and you're going to have to cycle off of them. And I've seen people have to cycle off from like 2 months, 3 months. The thing to do in those situations is always to switch to dopaminergics, right? Or just, methylxanthines like teocrine, theobromine, caffeine, and dynamine. Dynamine is a ripping hot chemical that no one talks about that is going to be in the new Cortex stack. So look forward to that. It's going to be sick. If I miss anything, nootropics for, why is that not working? Okay, there we go. Robert Evans is asking about which nootropics to take for optic nerve function. Don't know. Off the top of my head, I wouldn't know which nootropics will directly target optic nerve. You're referring to the optic chiasm by the pituitary gland, I assume. In which case, no idea. No idea. Why is your optic nerve not functioning well? I mean, the only things that cause that are invasive tumors in the pituitary that push on the optic chiasm and give you vision problems. You might need to look into that. Otherwise I don't know. SB0003 is saying, is it possible that low dopamine can affect the estrogen disposal other than its effect on prolactin? Is it possible that low dopamine can affect estrogen disposal, like the metabolism of estrogen? Here's the deal with dopamine and estrogen. So, estrogen, when it binds to estrogen receptors, it decouples dopamine from those receptors. Isn't that wild? Think about this. When estrogen binds to receptors that dopamine has the ability to bind to too, which is receptors that usually have D2 places in your body or brain that have D2 receptors, the estrogen uncouples dopamine from those receptors. It's just totally fucking crazy. It's something I would not have ever known until I got a client that had a pituitary adenoma, and I had to look into estrogen and dopamine and its effects at the pituitary level. So the bottom line is that, low dopamine will essentially allow estrogen to favorably bind to tissues that have dopamine receptors and estrogen receptors, like the pituitary, right? And I don't know what that's going to end up doing. Right, what that could end up doing is making you make more prolactin than you should be making. Either way, without enough dopamine, you're gonna make more prolactin, which is just not good and messes with your sexual function for sure. So you want to get that up with macunapurines or a cyclolamine MABC or something. You definitely don't want low dopamine, but it does interact with estrogen pretty substantially. Let me see here if there's anything I'm missing. Jonathan is saying, I've had insomnia for 10 plus years, which was treated by mirtazapine, but not only do I want to be able to naturally fall asleep, but I need to stop the mirtazapine. How can I stop? Well, that would be a consult, brother. If you want to get in touch with me, you go to livecortex.com and book a call or an email consult, and I can look into it for you. But off the top of my head, I wouldn't know. Jordan G Unit is saying nicotine patch for starting from 0. Smoked years ago, but high dose lozenge made me sick. Well, what milligram was the lozenge? I mean, if it was 4 milligrams, the lowest amount of nicotine in a patch is 7 milligrams. That's the least amount of nicotine that you get in a patch. Yeah, if you're not used to nicotine, a 7 milligram patch might kick your ass. If you smoked, in the past, then it may not. It's difficult to tell. I smoked in the military. Every person smokes in the military. And so using nicotine patches now, I don't get any negatives. I get literally 0 negatives from it. I just get instant energy that lasts a long time. So the best thing you can do is try a 7 milligram patch and see how you fare. Cutting them, which would give you 3.5 or something milligrams, is a little sketchy because the technology is not made to be cut in half. And then still, it's not like you cut it in half and then you have a 3.5 milligram distribution. Like the tech that allows it to sustainably transmit nicotine to the blood isn't meant to be cut in half. So, I mean, your best bet is just to try a 7 milligram patch. If you want to try one of those pouches, they're nicotine pouches. I think the company that makes them is called Zyn, Z-Y-N. And then you put them in your mouth. And I think that's like 4 milligrams of nicotine or 2 each. And you can put 2 in your mouth and see how you fare. Just so you can see like how you respond to, nicotine creeping up into that level. Nicotine side effects for when you're not used to nicotine are horrible. I mean, they don't last very long. They maybe last 10 minutes or something. Once you get the nicotine out of the system, like go smoke a big cigar and you're not used to nicotine. You're going to feel like shit, or smoke a cigarette. You will feel like absolute dog shit. And same thing with the patch if you're not used to it. That's why I start with 7 milligrams and I think you should be great. Thank you so much for the $5. Really appreciate it. Robert Evans is saying, I tried Colorastam with some beef liver capsules as a choline source and got basically nothing, no effect. Yeah, Colorastam isn't all that stimulatory. It just makes you synthesize, it makes choline enter cells easier in your brain. Like when you metabolize choline from eating choline, some of that gets transported to your brain, I believe through the vagus nerve. And then once it gets in there, it's got to enter neurons and then metabolize and bind to receptor sites. And colaracetam gets in the middle of that to make it enter neurons and then kind of facilitate choline metabolism. So if, your beef liver capsules didn't have enough choline in them, like you also have to then go absorb that in your gut and then transport the choline up. So I don't even know. It's like you don't know how long that's going to take with a source of choline that's not instantly bioavailable. If you get something that crosses the brain, like GPC, like alpha GPC, then I bet you would have a much better response. Methylene blue is basically mitochondrial optimization chemical. I've used it on and off over the years, not a whole lot. Turns your tongue blue, or it turned my tongue blue. And I forget exactly what it's doing to mitochondria, but it would not stimulate me when I took it, but it seemed to make my brain work. It seemed to make my brain clearer, like there was just nothing inhibiting my brain function. No stimulation on top of baseline, but I was like a little more clear than usual. Serene 618 is saying, is there a use case for 9 MEBC on a testosterone regimen? Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you're optimizing testosterone, then, you're going to want to, or at least you would benefit from optimizing dopamine at the same time. Right. Because, and then it works in like this continuous positive feedback. Testosterone helps you to release more dopamine. And then you got 9-MEBC, which is making you make more dopamine and kind of maintaining or upgrading the dopamine system in general. So yes, it does make sense because dopamine, it's a critical part of libido. It's usually induced by androgens like dopamine. Dopamine neurons are very responsive to sex steroids. Okay, people think it's just, administer some dopamine, get libido or something. And yeah, you may, but you're just going around the fact that usually it's sex steroids that induce that. Dopaminergic neurons are poised very heavily to respond to sex steroids. So yeah, there's a case for that. Inositol is a nootropic. I forget exactly what it's doing. I think it's modifying a couple dopamine receptors at some level. Maybe making you make a little more dopamine. Andrew saying nicotine downregulates some glutamate transporters, can make people anxious for sure. Didn't know that. I would love to see paper on that and see if you could mitigate it or at what dose and at what consistency that happens. Because physiology is so complex. I'm 16 years in or going on 17 and there's still stuff that I'm like, really? Like that I learn and then thought I knew and then evolve upon the understanding of that thing these days. It's so complex. Guys like me and other specialists in certain fields know a lot. And then, run-of-the-mill MD knows a lot. You combine us two together in our knowledge, we know a fucking lot. But in the grand scheme of things, we don't know shit. That's the truth. That is the absolute truth about the complexity of physiology. Isn't that crazy? 16 years experience, MD, goes to medical school, goes to a residency program, is an underling at a clinic, then has his own practice, sees 5,000 patients. Me, 16 years, I've seen 2,000 plus clients, studied everything, combine our knowledge together and we don't know shit compared to what's out there in the complexity of the human body. It's just so, I guess I was saying that in response to that nicotine statement. Jonathan Layson is saying, I just learned about intranasal insulin and I'm type 1 diabetic. What are your thoughts on this as a nootropic? Not much experience with it. You'd be better off talking to Vigorous Steve, who I've had on this channel before about that, about all things related to insulin. He's much more versed in that kind of stuff. And bodybuilders that use insulin. So I couldn't tell you. I think if you're prescribed it, it's certainly going to help you function better via better glucose storage. I almost definitely function better neurologically. I can tell you when I induced insulin resistance, I did this myself with keto, because you'll do that if you're on it long enough and you don't refeed with carbs. My brain function was terrible, absolutely terrible. I had to fix it by eating lots of carbs for a very consistent period of time. And I don't think maybe berberine or something as I was taking as a glucose disposal agent, but I don't think I did anything else but eat a lot of carbs to get that fixed. And mostly mid to low glycemic index carbohydrates. Great questions so far, guys. If you got more questions, ask them. I'll put them on the screen and we'll get it done. In the meantime, Torque Stack 30% off right now, guys. 30% off. I just now I'm almost out of this bottle. Well, I guess I got 3/4 left. And I don't keep Torque here. It's at a fulfillment center that ships to everybody once, people place orders. When I get low, I have to go literally manually place an order, and I get really concerned, man, because if I had to take a random trip to Florida like I almost had to do this weekend, I'm going to want Torque. Go get it, livecortex.com. The stuff is amazing. Did I miss any super chats here? I don't think so. If you guys got questions, post them, baby. Hope you guys are doing great, man. Happy Saturday. It's pretty nice here, actually. I'm going to go to the North Shore today. That's it's essentially on the, so North Shore South and the North, right? Well, it's it's west of the city, very close to the city, about 5 minutes, here in Pittsburgh. And it's where the Steelers and the Pirates stadiums are. And all this other cool shit. And the whole view of Pittsburgh is there. It's dope. And I go there to walk. I'm just going to walk up, a few miles or something. Kind of excited about it. That's what I'm doing today. Looks like there's a discussion about treatment for Alzheimer's. Very cool. Awesome, guys. I don't know what your guys' plans are. I don't know where you are, but I hope it's nice wherever you're at. I hope it's not inconsistent. Our weather here has been pretty inconsistent. We had a lot of rain recently, which, we need every now and then, all right? But it's, also a pain in the butt. You know what else is a pain in the butt? My girl cat escaped, and I have trained her very well. I'll take her outside with my boy cat out in the back, no restrictions. If they go too far, I snap at them and tell them to come back, and they listen. But she got out, and she's been out for a fucking week. I don't know what she's into. I don't know if she'll ever come back, and it's troubling, but real pain in the butt, man. I'm actually sad. I want her to come back. Danny C. Ryan, amazing. Keep up the great work. You got it, brother. Thank you for your compliment. Really appreciate that. Mal N is asking difference between Torque and Cortex. Well, Cortex is out of stock. The new version 2, which is Gen 2, is coming out in July or August. It's in production literally right now in a factory in New York. Going to be sick. But, the old Torque was dopamine centered predominantly, but worked on dopamine in a different way, enhancing dopamine receptor density, inducing neurogenesis. So it was a reparative and a dopamine stimulant type of nootropic. Whereas the new Torque is going to be pure stimulant madness, but with a balancing act in the stack to induce focus. It's a focus and flow stack. I wouldn't take the new Cortex formulation to multitask, because sometimes I just want to go all right, do this, do that, get 25 things done in a day. I have those kind of days. I wouldn't take it. But if I was going to write or, create a new course or something, or write a new guide, I would take the Cortex stack. Anything you need to sit down and focus for, but have good energy, that's what the new Cortex stack is. Torque is kind of generally applicable everywhere. Dopamine energy, stimulant energy, memory enhancement. It's an all-around super nootropic. That's what Torque is. S225. Let me see if I can find her super chat. Oh, I thought that was the same one as the other one. Would BPC 157 sub-Q to my glutes get to my shoulder? I don't know. But if your injury is in your shoulder, hold on a second here. Actually, that works out. Oh no, that doesn't work out. Hold on. If your injury is in your shoulder, like up here, I'm assuming. I mean, that's the most common place for injuries. I have an injury in my shoulder right now. It's in the back, so I'm deloading, which sucks. I'm losing a little bit of mass, I can tell. You should probably see if it's possible. I would do your research on this, but see if it's possible if you can inject it sub-Q in your shoulder. If you can just inject it like in the shoulder tissue up here. You know, if not, possibly your delt would work. I don't know the absorbability of subcutaneous BPC 157 injections. So, I wish I could help you there. Thoughts on creatine as a nootropic? Yeah, I think it helps people to function better. It certainly did me when I used it. I haven't used creatine for a long time, but maybe at some point I will. But yeah, no, there's brain creatine, like, so you'll end up with a little more brain creatine, and I forget exactly how the mechanics interact with like ATP, but I think you're getting better ATP, which is just cellular energy production from creatine. So that's something that probably makes creatine a pseudo nootropic, if you will. Torque to the UK, working on it, probably not anytime very soon. But the ingredients are on the website, so I mean you could mimic it and essentially get the ingredients yourself and make torque if you really wanted to. But then again, we have the best like formulation and the best concentration of macunapurine, so it's going to be hard to, or a very high level macunapurine, it's just going to be hard to find exactly that. Serena 618 is asking about red light. With what regularity and duration should a red light be used? I assume you're asking for testosterone purposes. It's 3 to 6 inches away for 5 to 10 minutes a night. For good measure, I would cycle off for 2 days, so 5 days on, 2 days off, but I don't think you have to. Jonathan Layson, sorry to hear about your cat. Yeah, her name's Muma. She's a special, special girl, and I love her. But she's been itching to get out, and now she's out. And there are falcons in my backyard, dude. There are hawks, and they're not very friendly with cats, so yeah, it's a disaster. I don't want her to be out. All right. Let me see if I'm missing anything here. Mark is asking an interesting question about daily Noopep to improve information retention. Yeah, I think you could try it. It's eventually probably going to lose efficacy. Even the founders of the chemical, the inventors, it's a Russian scientist woman named Rita something, suggests that you cycle off of Noopept every 4 months. No, their intention of taking it was modulation of the neurotransmitter systems and the growth factors that are lacking in Alzheimer's, right? So different context than a guy taking nootropics. I've not seen continuous Noopep be very successful without some cycling. But yes, this stuff will improve memory retention if the dose is right for you, where you don't have side effects from it. And that may mean 5 milligrams, bro. I mean, you don't necessarily have to take it at high levels. Good question, though. Yeah, Noopept is a severely underrated compound. Like, people are just like, oh, because it's been around for 10 years. I was talking about it in 2015 on the web. Still pretty radical. Jeff is saying that tyrosine gives him anxiety, but often makes me super relaxed. Why is that? Yeah, it's interacting with your neurotransmitters in some other way, in some weird way. Or, I mean, the noradrenaline or the noradrenergic stimulation is, yeah, it's like fussing with your energy. It's like maybe fussing with cortisol and lowering it, because stimulants tend to do that. And so that could be what's happening. If you have any kind of adrenal hormone output problem, that'd be measured by low cortisol and low aldosterone, then, or defined by low cortisol and low aldosterone, then most stimulants are going to make you feel crappy, including coffee. So that that could be why it's making you relax. I don't know. I would wager there's something else happening in your brain, like you're on a pharmaceutical medication, or you've been on pharmaceutical medication, or you're administering tyrosine with something else. Also include your dose with stuff like that so I can properly diagnose. Vincent is saying, I'm 42, 5'7", 158 pounds, in very good shape. Awesome for 42. Good job, bro. I fast and lift weights regularly. My stack is geared for energy and improved cognition. Theanine, creatine, cordyceps, coffee. Beautiful. I think it looks good, man. If you feel good, ain't nothing, nothing. You shouldn't change it, and there's nothing I'm going to say that's going to make it any. Well, I could probably make it better, but I think your stack is rad if it works, for you. New Pep long term. Well, look, again, the founders of it, which created it and described its use in the context of Alzheimer's and studies. These people are Russian scientists, the woman actually, discussed it in the context of long-term use with cycles in between, about a 3-month cycle on period. So take from that what you will. I've used New Pep on and off for 13, 14 years. It's hard for me to exactly say when I started it, somewhere in 2008 probably, or no, 2009, 2010. I don't know. But I've used it a lot. I noticed if I keep using it, I desensitize from the response, so it's not as powerful as it once was. And if I use it too consistently in high doses, I get brain fog from it. So, the right balance has to be struck with all cholinergics, including New Pep. Mal is saying, best stack for social anxiety. Love all your content. Been a subscriber for years. Thank you for being here, Mal. Well, you want a stimulant and a balancer, I don't think this is a particularly great idea, but I worked with an Italian, how do you even call these guys? He was like a pickup artist or something. He has a very popular YouTube channel. He's like one of the major pickup guys on YouTube, and he hired me to give him nootropic stacks or advise him on nootropic stacks for pickup situations. And what worked the best, which is not something I would suggest, is phenylpiracetam and phenibut. Okay, so you have this, energy nootropic. And then you have a GABA B modulating chemical. So you had this profound energy, and then you had this cool, relaxed feeling from phenibut. So he was dosing like 300 milligrams phenylpiracetam and I think it was like 500 milligrams of phenibut. And he's like, dude, pickup is 1,000 times easier. Confident, smooth, verbally fluent, and all that stuff. So, so social anxiety, that would be one of them. Also, though, social anxiety has a lot to do with the fact that you're hanging around the wrong people. I might be socially anxious. Like, here's where I'm socially anxious: in people in pubs that are very simple-minded, that I can't talk to about anything complex, right? Anything with any degree of appreciable fucking depth. Because they want to talk about like all meaningless bullshit, right? So when I'm around those type of people, I get anxious because they're nothing like me, and they see me as the guy that's like maybe smart or too wanting to talk about things of substance and not wanting to chill and relax and whatever. I can only do small talk for so long without wanting to throw up. So, I have social anxiety around those situations. I have social anxiety if I'm around people that are not like me, or yeah, like just that I find annoying in some way. You got to stick with people that are like you. Forget all this everybody's the fucking same and try to like love everybody. No, not everybody's the same, and people are absolutely going to be polar opposites to you. And in some cases that's going to be great, in other cases it's not. So don't, hang around with them. You don't have to like everyone. That's crazy. So yeah, be around the right people for social anxiety, and otherwise, look for that. Maybe try the phenylpiracetam phenibut stack. Your mileage is going to vary, but up to you. Jonathan Layson is asking, I have 10 grams of New Pep powder. Does it even work orally? Because it doesn't seem to. You can make a nasal spray if you want. Yeah, you're going to have to look into how to make the nasal spray correctly. It's distilled water and New Pep essentially, from what I remember. Maybe want to, back that up with some research. When you look at nootropic not working, you have to look at, okay, what is the mechanism of action of the nootropic? What is my brain state when I'm going into it? Like what's happening around that time? Other pharmaceutical or nutraceutical agents may be affecting it, as well as like, why are you using it? And is there a problem at baseline making you want to use that? Because maybe that problem at baseline is preventing the nootropic from working. In addition to that, maybe you're metabolizing it too quickly. There's just so much that goes into it. Jordan Gina is saying, guitar player here that does work out a lot. Any PEDs or nootropics you think are smart for small muscles in the hand to work better? Wow. Interesting question. On tier THC, which helps a ton, but always looking for more. God, I wouldn't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. I really, that is an unusual one. PEDs work for small muscles. Nope, no idea. No idea. Anything that just gives you more endurance, man. I wouldn't know. Any PED that's anabolic would probably help, though. I mean, to give you something general, any anabolic PED would help, So I don't know if you want to like go down the route of taking like very highly anabolic steroids, maybe not, but I'm sure they'll help. I've got a very androgenic steroid coming in. It is called Proviron or Mestrolone, and I'm going to be fussing with that sometime soon. I'm kind of excited about it. Vincent is saying, your content is phenomenal, bro. Appreciate it. I'm an X-ray tech, and I'm about to start going back to school in a very intense radiation therapy program. I need guidance and optimization geared for studying. Look, if you want to book a consult with me, if you have the budget, or just send an email consult because those are cheap, I can help you. Off the top of my head, it's difficult to say without understanding your situation and kind of where you need to be cognitively, based on where you've been and where your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. But that said, modafinil is probably going to be your friend. 100 milligrams. Okay, 100 milligrams modafinil is going to be your friend. In addition to that, a cholinergic like a racetam, so that you can force better utilization of brain choline. Aniracetam or oxiracetam are going to be your best bet for that. So have energy with something like modafinil. You could, I wouldn't call the methylxanthines interchangeable with modafinil, but you could somewhat switch modafinil with like teocrine or theobromine or dynamine just to give you that energy. But do have racetams around for that. So the template is energy, memory optimization, which you can achieve by adenosine receptor antagonism, dopamine reuptake inhibition, orexin system optimization, as well as choline release in the hippocampus, which you'll do with racetams. You are welcome. Best stack for door-to-door sales. Probably the Mr. Happy stack, or anything like a stack with a combination of about 100 to 200 milligrams of uridine and 50 to 100 milligrams of citicoline. And if you want to optimize that stack, add like 5 milligrams of Noopep. Don't dose the Noopep very high in that stack, and you'll be a verbal fluency machine with that. Jonathan is saying so Noopep nasal worked for you. Great. Yeah, that's just because you had some sort of issue with oral bioavailability, which does happen. Can't explain it, right? But it has to be the case, right? So nasal spray like comes in contact with blood vessels in your olfactory nerves up here, and that gets it right into your bloodstream. So that's why nasal spray is so very good for turning on, nootropic effects. Not that oral isn't, but I mean, some people just may not respond very well to oral nootropics. I mean, it's entirely possible that you could be one of those people. Any other questions, guys? If you got questions, ask them. Don't judge me on my Coke. I ran out of coffee and need some caffeine. And I also ran out of nicotine patches. And my nootropics are in the basement. And I just got home, so I didn't have time. Guys. Meantime, Torque Stack 30% off. Biggest special ever besides a BOGO. We won't be running a BOGO anytime soon, so go get cheap Torque, livecortex.com. Links in the description of this video, where you can just click that link in the comment section. Just at the top of the comments. It should be pinned, actually. You enter the code 30Torque at checkout. You can enter it in the sidecar, I believe, too. The sidecar's like a little confusing, so just wait to check out when you see the coupon, adding ability, add 30Torque, just all one word together. Apply it, and it will take 30% off of the price of Torque. That is exceptionally awesome. Jonathan, you are welcome. Any other questions, guys? If you got them, ask them. Otherwise, I'm going to go take myself to the North Shore and walk a couple miles. And then I think we're doing pizza today, baby. I think we're doing pizza, bro. Did I miss any super chats? Just want to make sure. Vincent, I really don't have any thoughts on kava other than I've had most of my clients that have been taking it stop taking it because it was doing something negative. I forget off the top of my head, but haven't seen it, I haven't seen it not come without side effects. Bubbles is saying, have a stack for mitochondria. Yes, Glynac, and that's like, well, depending on who you ask, my professional opinion on it would be 6 grams of glycine and 6 grams of N-acetylcysteine per day. That'd be the best mitochondrial optimization stack I think you could take. Otherwise, singular chemicals like acetyl L-carnitine will help with mitochondrial function. Jammer, thoughts on methylene blue? I think it's okay. It turns your tongue blue. The only thing I've ever really gotten from it was clear brain, which is good. No stimulation though, which is fine. It did make my brain, a little clearer. So that's kind of it. So thanks for the question. I think you can, I think it's safe. Like, I think, I have suggested it to some of my clients just as an experiment. Like, and I remember this older guy who had mentioned to me when we first had the, the onboarding consultation, he was like, I used to take methylene blue and I liked it. So I had him cycling that, a few times a week and he really seemed to enjoy it. No major negatives that I can tell that people experience with methylene blue. I think it's a pretty interesting chemical, some sort of mitochondrial optimization. So yeah, take it, see what you get. Thanks for the super chat. Serene618 with the $4 super chat, $5 super chat. Appreciate your super chat, bro. Normally take 40 milligrams CDP choline as my choline source with 400 of aniracetam. Good stack. Or to switch to alpha GPC instead, what would the dose be? I'd say the same because, the difference between the two of them is the dopamine action that CDP choline enhances or exerts. But as far as the choline content, it's relatively the same, right? It's pretty close. I think alpha GPC has a little more choline content, like per, I don't know, call it milligram or call it per 10 milligrams than citicholine. I forget where I read that, but I believe it's true. So, possibly 30 milligrams would be a better option. I think you'd get like pretty much the same results. But that's a good stack, honestly, because you're dosing it intelligently. Some people only need those kind of doses with racetams, and I love that. When I see people that they're like, I don't have to take a gram of it or whatever, it's great, dude. Save money, you'll save powder. You won't desensitize your response to it as soon. So I think that is great. Simon is asking, and Chris, thanks so much for the $4. Really appreciate it. Simon is asking, have you ever experienced the 7-8 DHF? No, I have not, Simon. I don't know what that is. If you could inform me. What's up, Donald Pump? Let's go. Let's fucking go, bro. We gonna win this year or what? We gonna win the election, bro? Let's go. No, cerebral lysine did not. I ordered it overseas and I think it got hung up at customs, which is just a giant pain in the ass. I could have ordered it here, but I was ordering a bunch of stuff from overseas. So yeah, I lost all of it. I'm almost positive. So I haven't reordered it. Mal is asking anything negative about berberine. Also, what about DIM? So I can't tell you a whole lot about berberine. Anything negative. I've not seen anything negative. DIM will not reduce estrogen. Well, it's not going to reduce estradiol. DIM is predominantly used to metabolize out estrone and estriol, right? Essentially the estrogens you don't want binding to your prostate receptor sites, prostate ERB and ERA receptor sites, among other places, right? So essentially the bad estrogens. DIM probably helps you to reduce xenoestrogens, which are outside estrogens that are contained in perhaps some foodstuffs that have negative activity at estrogen receptors in your body because they structurally the ligand is very similar to either estrone, estriol, or estradiol. And so DIM helps to reduce that. It will do nothing for estradiol, which if you're on TRT and you're trying to take DIM for estrogen control, it's not going to help. It won't help. I know there's a lot of people saying that it will out there, that it helps with estradiol or something, and that's because they want to be upvoted or they want to be right, or they're dogmatic about estrogen on TRT. just dim doesn't do anything for actual estradiol. It couldn't, it has no aromatase inhibition properties to it. If you want to reduce estrogen levels, what was I recently come to understand? That selenium as a supplement actually is a very, very mild aromatase inhibitor. That's the only thing you can really find that's a real aromatase inhibitor at a mild level. Because even Cialis is not. Cialis has some sort of gene modifying, capabilities at the aromatase gene or something, but it's not going to reduce E2, markedly or noticeably. Unfortunately, the problem with TRT is like, at the therapeutic rate where you get proper DHT conversion and you actually have libido, because some people don't. They're on 150 milligrams. They're not making enough DHT from it. And maybe that's a problem with 5-alpha reductase. Who knows? And they don't have enough like androgenic effects from TRT. Those people, it's like they need to bring their testosterone dose higher. And that's just going to metabolize more estradiol. And that means they're going to have to use an AI. And I know they're hard to dose. Believe me, I experience it myself, But I've got a good regimen, at least at this point, of about 0.125 every third day or so. Keeps my E2 in a good range for my current testosterone dose at the moment. And no negative sides. I had the initial transient arthralgia that everyone thinks is like the end of the world on Reddit. It exposes your weakness. When you have negative responses to AI in terms of joint function, it exposes your weaknesses. Start taking some fish oil and do some other things to take care of your fucking joints. Estrogen is not the only thing that makes your joints like work. And don't think that you just let estrogen go and your joints are going to be, there's all these people talking about, it's so misunderstood, dude. Even YouTubers with 70,000 subscribers, like this kid Ryan Russo, who I emailed to try to collab and was a total dick, by the way. He's like, my estrogen's up at 80 and it's fine. Like, you guys are all wrong about that. You're all wrong. You're eventually going to have a fucking pituitary tumor or something. I guarantee your junk doesn't work the way that it's supposed to, or it won't at some time in the future. And just because you have high test doesn't mean that the subsequent, conversion to estradiol is good. Yes, that is going to happen. Doesn't mean it's good. You get a virus, you get an overload of cytokines, doesn't mean it's good. Natural reactions aren't necessarily good. Anyway, rant over. Mark is saying, if you're taking an anticholinergic medication, would it be advantageous to take a choline source? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there probably isn't data on that, but depends on what it's doing. If it's antagonizing the choline receptors, then that's going to be a little hard, right? You may want to take nicotine. Yeah, that would be the thing, because nicotine will actually displace anticholinergics at the cholinergic receptor, probably, because if it's massive affinity, even more than choline at the receptor site. So, yeah. Additionally, though, just making choline work better with racetams helps people that are taking anticholinergics. I have direct experience with this. So yes, it would be advantageous to either take choline source, maybe some nicotine, and then some stuff that speeds up choline usage and signaling, like aniracetam or oxiracetam. Don't know if cerebral lysin would improve optic nerves. Darren, do you know how a bad weed trip would work in the brain? Which neurotransmitters? Well, marijuana does so many things, man. Like, I don't know. What is it? Cannabidiol? Like one of the chemicals in like actual pot, not THC. It binds to estrogen receptors. Mimics estrogen, which is not good. Can facilitate like lactotrope expression in the pituitary, make you make more prolactin. But largely, I think what you're running into is like, or at least what people run into when they don't have good brain function when smoking pot, is a dysregulation of acetylcholine for temporary period. That's basically what you're looking into there, what you're running into. Cholinergics help for that. Like when I have used pot in the past, like I've smoked pot before and taken edibles and stuff. I don't love it. I haven't smoked pot or ingested cannabis in almost 2 years at this point. Will I in the future? Maybe, I don't know. But, back in the day when I probably interacted with it more, I would take cholinergic nootropics with it. I would take L-car and or aniracetam and or uridine and choline, and then I would function great cognitively and still have like, the weed high. And I wouldn't be paranoid because my brain was working really well. You know that paranoia that you get, which is so bizarre on pot. I think you can modify so much of that positively by just taking cholinergics. Donald Pump, LOL, that kid Ryan Russo seems like he's got 2 brain cells up there. When I watched him, I have to put it at 2x speed. Yeah, he seems to talk slow. Yeah, he lives in Pittsburgh, right? So, and I just found that out, and I was like, oh, I should reach out to him to see if like maybe we can do a collab. Like you guys would like that. He talks about, PEDs and anabolic steroids and stuff like this. He was one of those young kids that got on SERMs and like, got big and posted on YouTube. And so I reached out to him and he goes, no, thank you. That's all. I was like, I put this big paragraph like, hey, we should get together and do something. I live in Pittsburgh. He goes, no, thank you. And me, I'm a salesman. I'm like, all right, well, why? Maybe does our content not overlap? Like I was trying to be like positive, like, hey, here's an opportunity. And he goes back and he said something like really ridiculous. He goes like, you can't take a no for a no. That's disrespectful as fuck, G shit. And I'm like, okay, child. Like, bro, I just reached out to you to like collab, on YouTube. And he just turned out to be an absolute fucking weirdo. So what do you know? I guess a guy that, non-judiciously and haphazardly takes shit he doesn't understand would be a weirdo and ends up with fucking PSSD-like symptoms. Sorry, bro. Tried to help you. Serene618 is saying, I work indoors a lot, so I'm considering getting a large red light lamp for energy. Advice on duration, frequency, and brand of lamp. What was the brand that I used some time ago? Well, a large one. You know what? You want to look at the Juve lamps. God, how do they spell it? I think it's that, right? Yeah, JOOVV would be your answer. And I've not used it, but people that I follow and trust use it. Like Ben Greenfield and what's that super funny guy from YouTube that does parodies? JP Sears, you know that guy? Red hair dude, long hair dude, all funny sort of parody, like, mocking, shit type of funny YouTube videos. He uses a Juve red light system, and they're like one of the most popular companies for red light therapy. So I would use a Juve system for that. But for, again, on duration, 5 to 10 minutes a night. If you're doing it for testosterone, 3 to 6 inches away from the testicles, 5 days a week. Cycle off on the weekends for good measure, but you don't necessarily have to. Jose is saying, I'm losing my hair and doctor recommended finasteride, but I'm hesitant to take it. Do you have experience with it? Okay. You're right to be hesitant about taking it. Yeah. Because if you've heard about PFS or post-finasteride syndrome, which the name, I guess, was coined by lawyers trying to make money or whatever for their people, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Look, finasteride, the whole reason it stops hair loss is because it inhibits DHT, dihydrotestosterone, at the scalp level, but systemically. When you inhibit DHT systemically, your most powerful androgen for sexual function, which is DHT, you really can't make a lot of it, right? So then you have no DHT. You still have testosterone binding to the androgen receptors, but that testosterone is nowhere near as potent for androgenic effects like libido, and therefore erection quality as DHT. So this is why these guys get sexual muting when they take finasteride, because it's blocking the ARs, and we don't know if it then takes a long time for the 5 ARs to come back, the 5-alpha reductase enzymes, to then be able to convert your testosterone to your most important androgen ever for sexual function, which is DHT. So I'd be hesitant to get on it too, my bro. I would not get on it if I were you, frankly. I wouldn't. I'd deal with the hair loss, go bald and grow a beard and just fucking bite the bullet. Or look into microneedling or red light therapy that you can actually, shine on your head. They have essentially a baseball cap that has red light, like electrodes and shit in the inside of it that you can put on your head that may stimulate hair growth. So I'd look at every other alternative, including microneedling, before going on finasteride. And from me to you, I would never touch finasteride ever, 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 ever. As someone who's done consulting on people with PFS, PSSD, it's just I see how terrible their lives are. I mean, imagine having zero libido, zero interest in sex, but you're a man. Imagine not waking up in the morning wood and not having random erections. Imagine not wanting to, rail every chick you see. I think when you're there, you really feel like a man. And when you have none of that, it can't be a good experience. I'm getting a question about consultation on gene tests that I can optimize epigenetics. It's not my specialty. So I'm sure we'll get you some value of whatever consult you purchase. I'd get so that you're not spending a bunch of money, either an email or just a brief call consult with me. But whatever the situation is, if there is research that needs to be done, but if there's more importantly answers that you need from your results, I can help you. I'm not versed in epigenetics, but my understanding of physiology takes me a long way. Donald Pump says, I saw JP Sears at Tony Robbins 7 years ago. Yeah, he's a killer, man. He's so funny, bro. He's so sarcastic. It's just great. Costa is asking, have you ever tried uridine gel or patches? Is taking a nicotine patch a good choice? With a nicotine patch? No, I didn't know that there was uridine patches. I didn't know that was a thing. I've never tried it. But uridine with nicotine patches, yeah, should be pretty effective. I've taken previous version of Cortex. I still have a little Cortex left because the stuff is powerful. With nicotine patches and got good results. Pretentious Satyr is saying, do you then, by the same logic, also recommend do creatine regardless of hair loss, since it causes hair loss by increasing DHT? To do creatine, I don't know if it does that, or if that's how powerful of a systemic DHT inhibitor or DHT creator that creatine is. I couldn't really answer that question. I'd have to look into it. What supplements would you use or nootropics to lower cortisol? Lower cortisol and ashwagandha. God, off the top of my head, other than rhodiola, which may just balance your response to cortisol. If you raise your testosterone levels, that will have a somewhat of an inverse relationship or negative response on cortisol levels. So that could help you or be effective. Other than that, lowering cortisol with certain supplements. I know the answer to this. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. What about dopamine and its relationship? Serotonin and its relationship. Yeah, increasing serotonin concentrations is probably going to lower cortisol. Yeah, is what I would suggest. Other than that, eat less carbs. That's not going to be healthy long term, but if you eat less carbs, you're going to make less cortisol. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up the stream. Epic questions. Thank you guys so much for all your super chats. Really appreciate it. Jammer, Serene618. Who else super chatted on here? S225, Jordan G Unit. Appreciate you guys so much. Marcel W, if you're still here, thank you so much for the super chat. Guys, great questions. Much more content coming this week, obviously. I thought I was going to Florida, but I am not, so I'll be here. I'm hanging. I got a lot of cool stuff to talk about and a lot of cool content to put out that's already on the list, ranging from Viagra, sildenafil, and its effect on brain function, but also its effect on recovering, erection quality for people that have had, less than optimal erection quality for many years via kind of like a rehab of the vasculature of the penis. So I've got a lot of really cool content coming. Again, guys, as I said, the Torque Stack is 30% off right now, livecortex.com. The code is 30Torque. You enter it at checkout and it'll take 30% off of the price. Like, it's already a pretty cheap stack considering how good it is. But if you use 30% off coupon code, then you're getting 30 additional percent off of it. Like, no brainer. If you haven't tried it, this is the time to do it, because then you can see how you like it, how you respond to it. If you want to keep taking it, but you don't have to pay the full price for it. Like, that's the epic, nature of having good discounts. So go check it out, livecortex.com. Links for consulting, links for digital nootropics books, links for our TRT guide, and everything else can be found in the description of this video. I appreciate your guys' questions. Thanks for them, and I will see you this week.